welcome to my next video. Today I want to talk to you about something that is very important. It's something that could get you deactivated, and kind of want to talk you through what you can do to help avoid it. Also want to talk to you about what one of the companies are doing so that they can alleviate this problem. There are a lot of people that have been deactivated from the food delivery apps because they pick up an order, they deliver the order, they mark the order as complete, and then the customer marks that the order was not delivered. If you are doing a delivery and the customer marks the order was not delivered, it's not a big deal. This happens from time to time. Out of about 1,000 deliveries that I've done, I've only had it happen to me one time. However, if you are getting multiple people that are claiming that you haven't delivered it, this is something that DoorDash, Uber Eats, and Grubhub will deactivate you for. So it is very, very important that you take all the steps that you need to make sure that this doesn't happen to you. Make sure that you follow the instructions on the app as far as what the customer requests for the delivery, whether it be a hand it to the customer or a leave it at the door, and set yourself up as best you can so you don't have this happen. If you get deactivated from one of these platforms, it is very, very difficult to get back on. I'm not saying that it can't be done. However, it is quite a process for it to get you reinstated and get you back on the platform to start delivering. This is another reason where I suggest that you have multiple apps, because if you have a problem on one of the apps, you've got a couple that you can use as a backup in those situations so that you can make sure that you can keep making the money that you need to be making, even if you get deactivated on one of them. Don't worry about it happening as long as you follow my suggestions in doing these deliveries, then you shouldn't have any problem. One thing I will say that is the one time it did happen to me, the customer got a hold of me directly and said that I didn't deliver the order. I did not contact the customer back. I did not get in touch or text or call or anything with the customer. I knew I delivered the order. I knew I left it at the address that the app stated that I should leave it at. So in this case, it was with Uber Eats, and what I ended up doing is when that customer called and said that they actually left a message and said, hey, I didn't get my food after I marked it complete, I got right on the phone with support and talked to them immediately. In the apps, there are places that you can go to get a hold of support for each one of them in case you run into a problem, and this obviously would be a big problem. But I called support right away and I said, hey, this customer is stating that I did not deliver their order. I said I delivered it to the address that was given me. I took a picture. This one happened to be at an apartment complex, and in the picture I had the apartment number in that picture so that they could see that I had delivered it. And it was a McDonald's order on that particular one. But if you should happen to get a notice from the platform, or if a customer gets a hold of you in some way and says that you did not deliver their order, get a hold of the platform right away. And I suggest calling them, because you're actually talking to a live person, and that's what support is there for, so that if you have an issue, that you can reach out to somebody that can help you solve it. I've never had to do the DoorDash or the Grubhub for a order not delivered, only Uber Eats, but I got a hold of them, I talked to them, they said don't worry about it, we got your documentation, we understand the situation, and just let it go and you're fine. So anyway, let's get into the topic. The first thing that I want to say is that the platforms know where you are when you're on a food delivery. They know when you're on their app, they keep track of your GPS and where you are, so they can see that you are going from the restaurant and that you've arrived at the customer's address. So there is that one level of documentation that you'll always have, because the platforms keep track of that very well. The second thing is, if you want to keep from having people say that you didn't deliver, communication is the key. When I get to a restaurant, I always text the customer and I let them know that I have arrived at the restaurant. When I get the order from the restaurant and I am leaving, I text them to let them know, hey, I have your food and I am on the way to deliver your order. The third thing I do is, when I get to that customer and drop the order off, if it is a leave at the door request, I always text the customer and say something like, enjoy your dinner, or your food has been delivered, or something to that effect. And whenever you text a customer on the platforms, that is also documented by the apps, and they will have record of those text messages that you send to your customers. So it's another level of documentation, and the second thing that you should do. The third thing is when you are getting to the customer, then you, in the case that it is a leave at the door, I always try to get a picture of the food dropped off at the door, and I also take that picture with the house number or apartment number or something to that effect in the picture. I can't always do it, but I would say 90% of the time I can get the house number in the picture with the order, so that I can prove that I was at that address and they know that I dropped it off at that particular address. Another thing that I do is I always take a picture with the food and my hot bag sitting next to the food. And what this does is this shows that you were there with the food and dropped it off. Another thing that you also need to keep in mind is that many customers now have those Ring doorbells, or they have cameras on their front porch so that they can keep track of what's going on outside of their house, and they can record what's going on outside of their house. So if you go to a house and you drop an order and they call up and say, hey, the order wasn't delivered, they have an actual record of you dropping off the floor or dropping off the food and walking away from the door with nothing in your hand but your bag. So if you get that, make sure that you suggest to support, hey, they had a Ring camera and it can show that I dropped the food off and walked away. So that is another level of protection that you have in that situation, because it's obvious if you've watched videos on YouTube of people that actually have or said that they dropped off the food and they grabbed it. A lot of times they get caught because the camera's outside of the house, and they are immediately deactivated off of the platform. So anyway, those are a few things that you can do to make sure that you are not going to be deactivated because of customer stating that you haven't dropped the order when you stated that you did. One thing that I also want to talk about is the opposite side of that. When you pick up an order for a customer, the customer has paid for it and the order belongs to the customer, not you. Don't ever take any food that the customer has ordered and the restaurant has given you. This is just morally and legally, it is just not good, and it's technically a crime. It's stealing. Don't ever open the bags, because a lot of restaurants seal them up now. Don't ever open the bags, and make sure that you do not ever take the food or take some part of the food or take it and say that you dropped it off and you actually haven't. If you're that hard up for food, bring food with you, or out there and make 20 bucks and cash out immediately with these apps and go buy yourself your own food. I have never, ever, ever, ever tampered with any food that I have for a customer. And from what I've heard, about 25% of the drivers out there say they have done something with the food, either taken it or, grab some French fries or whatever out of the bag, and that is just wrong. Don't do it. One of the platforms are actually trying to combat this, and they're doing it in a great way because they know and they understand that sometimes a driver will have a customer that gets their food, and instead of saying the food was delivered, they will state that it was not delivered because they're trying to get a free meal. Uber Eats, I really applaud you because you are doing such a good job. They just rolled out a program to where in certain cases with certain orders, when you get to the customer to drop it off, they have to give you, from what I understand, a 4-digit PIN number that you actually have to type into the app when you are delivering it to them for them to be able to get their food. And I'm guessing that it's likely because they are customers that have said that their food hasn't been delivered on more than one occasion. I don't know this, but if they show a pattern of ordering off the platform and then saying the food wasn't delivered, it wouldn't surprise me if Uber would make them have a PIN number to verify that they got that order so that they cannot say that the order wasn't delivered. That is my guess, that is my assumption. I cannot quantify that, but that would be the best reason why I would suggest that Uber is doing this. On the flip side, they might have drivers that have had a number of customers state that they have not received their order, and to give the drivers an honest attempt to make sure that that doesn't happen, that could also be why they are requesting that the driver get a PIN number when they drop the food off so that they can keep the driver honest. Again, that's just my assumption, but those two scenarios are about the only reason I could think of why Uber Eats would implement this program. I think it's a wonderful program. I hope that DoorDash and Grubhub also implement something like that. Maybe not with every order, because most of the time you're not going to have this problem. But in the case that you are going to have this problem, it's good to have that layer of protection from the platform so that the customer can honestly say they got the food and the driver can honestly say they delivered the food. The other thing I want to talk about with this is on each of the apps, the customers can put notes in for your delivery. It might say leave the food at the back door. It might say knock when you get there. It might say call before you get there. It might say text, any number of things. Make sure when you pick up that food and you are getting ready to take the delivery that you always check out what the notes say so that you can make sure that you deliver it in the way that the customer wants. And if they have any special instructions, you'll know what those instructions are so you can make that delivery for them the way that they would like it delivered. Another thing that you can do is when you pick up the delivery and you are taking it to the customer, unless the app specifically says do not knock, whenever it is a leave at the door order, I always knock on the door or I ring the doorbell, and I also text the customer to let them know whether it's a knock or not. I always text them to let them know that I have delivered and dropped off their food so they know that it's there. Again, this is documentation. Again, this gives you another level of protection because you've actually knocked on the door and they know that you've arrived. One thing that I'm going to ask you to not do, which I've heard some drivers do, is they will leave it at the door, they will take a picture, and then they will sit outside of the customer's house until the customer gets out and grabs that order. And while this might sound like a good idea, I would suggest not doing it. And the biggest reason is it's just kind of creepy. You are a complete stranger to the customer. You likely have not ever delivered to that customer before, unless you're in a small town and you know, you go to the same places on a regular basis, but typically you have not delivered to that customer before. So if you kind of lurk outside of their house and wait for them to come out, then it's very possible that they could look at that as kind of creepy. They could also report you saying that you were being unprofessional because you sat outside and staked out their house. A lot of customers, when I do leave it at the door, they do not open their blinds, they do not open their door or come out and get their food until after I have pulled away from their house. And I always drop the food, I get in the truck and head out right away, because I don't want to seem like a creeper to my customers. So make sure that you're not lurking outside waiting and watching. I know that you think that we're doing it for a good reason, but this can backfire on you in the end. So make sure that when you drop an order, you get back in your vehicle, you've done everything you can up to that point to make sure that the order was done exactly right, and take off. So that would be my final suggestion. It is very possible that when you're doing these food deliveries that you will do everything right every time, and you will still get a customer that says that you did not deliver the food. If you follow the steps that I outlined here, that is not going to happen to you very often. As I said, I've done almost 1,000 deliveries, and I've had it happen to me one time. If you are having it happen to you a lot, that means that when you're out there doing these food deliveries, that you are doing something wrong, and you need to take a look at how you're doing it and follow the steps that I've outlined here, so that you can stop having that problem happen. Because if you follow the instructions, if you document what you do, and if you inform the customer throughout the process, then you're not going to have this problem. As I said, I have had it happen one time and one time only, and I believe that the customer in that case put the wrong apartment number and did not put the correct one, and I was not in the wrong when that happened, and I went about my business, and I've heard nothing about it since. So take all this advice in, use it so that you don't get deactivated for something that you have some control over, and always make sure that you are documenting everything that you do, that you're communicating with the customers, so that you have documentation of the whole order, so that you don't have to worry about being deactivated. I hope you really enjoyed today's topic, and I know that it is an important topic. Please don't forget, there are tons and tons of cameras, even at people's houses nowadays, and they are watching what happens in front of their house and documenting it. So don't ever put yourself into a situation that might get yourself in trouble, and always make sure that you do what I suggested here, so that you can make sure that you don't have that problem. I would ask you to also subscribe to my channel, and you'll get a lot more great content, a lot more great videos talking to you about how you can be successful out there doing these food delivery gigs. And also, please like my video, and also please share this video if you know somebody else that's doing food delivery and they need some good tips and good hacks and good advice, that they can jump on my channel and they can get the same stuff that you are. So I hope you have a good day. I hope you make all the money that you want, and thanks for watching my video.